So we're going to kind of, I'm not going to do this. I actually thought about getting Postgres running again and doing this with Postgres. We're just going to kind of fake Postgres for a moment, but this is how you would like combine Postgres together with Redis. So what I want to do is I want to do that caching thing that we were talking about earlier. Let's pretend that we have a Postgres query that takes a very long time to complete, and we want to do a caching strategy on top of that. So I have an r-get here. We actually already did this one. Let's do one more line here. We're going to do r with set. But the way that we're going to do an expiry is you actually have to do it with an ex here. So this is going to be set x like this. So this allows us to do a set with an expiry, right? They just made it a different function name. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to create a function here called cache. This function is going to take in some sort of long-running function. It's going to create a cached version of it. So it's going to take in a key. This is going to be the key that we're going to store in Redis. It's going to take in some sort of TTL, how many seconds we want it to survive, and some sort of slow function that we want to cache. Okay? So here we're going to, this is a function that will return another function. So we're going to return an async function of some variety. We can even call this like hashed, over here rather, hashed fn, right? So that our stack traces can look a little bit nicer. And this is going to have some variety of props that are going to come into it that we're just going to pass on to slow function when we call it. So it's a higher order function, right? It's a function that returns a function. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say const cached response equals await our key, or sorry, our get with our key. So the first thing we're going to do is like, do you have a cached response already in Redis? If yes, return it, right? So you're going to say if cached response here, success return, we can call it a day, return cached response, right? If not, then we're going to say const result equals await, and we're going to call slow function, and we're going to just spread out those props that we got here, right? So let's say this is like, reading from the database. We're just going to be passing in the props that we got into the slow function here. In this case, it doesn't matter, but we're making a generic function that we can use a bunch. We're going to say await our set x, because we want to set it to our cache so next time that we can hit it. And we're just going to say key TTL result. So whatever came back from the database, that's what we're going to cache. And we're going to return result. So this is great. Now we have this generic cache function that we can use anywhere that we want to cache some sort of result. So now all I want you to, we're just going to make a intentionally slow function. We're going to call this async function very slow and expensive, like Postgres query. Something like that. And you can imagine here you would do a big ugly query for Postgres, right? We're just going to return an artificially slow thing. So first thing I'm going to say console.log, oh no, a very expensive query, just so we can know when it happens. We can even put this up here as well and say, right there, hooray, it is cached. Okay, and then here we're going to say const promise equals new promise resolve, and then we're just going to say set timeout and resolve with like new date .toUtc string. So all it's going to do is after 5 seconds, it's going to resolve with the date. And then down here, we'll do this. We'll make it last like, I don't know, 10 seconds or something like that. Okay, and then down here, we're going to say return promise. So all this does right now is it just does a timeout, and it'll resolve this promise after 10 seconds, right? To kind of simulate like a long-running Postgres query. So now here's the fun part. We can say const cached fn equals cache expensive call, or whatever you want to call it. You know, well, we'll stick with that. Let's say we'll make this last for, this will be in seconds. Make it last for like 10 seconds or something like that. And let's make this one last 5 seconds. So this will get cached for 10 seconds, and then the TTL, it'll expire. So very slow and expensive function here. So now we have this cached fn, which will cache the response for this, and then every 10 seconds it'll get you a fresh copy of that. Okay, let's make a new route in our app here. It's going to be app.get / I don't know, get whatever you want to call it. Async rec res. And all it's going to do here is it's going to say const data equals await cached fn, and say res.json data status OK .end. All right, so now we have this endpoint / get that will call that endpoint. All right, so we need to stop and start our server again. And we're just going to go directly to /get. So notice this is going to take a second up here, because the first time it's going to get a cache miss. But now if I refresh it, it's really fast. And then after 10 seconds, we're going to get another long time before, there you go, now it's taking a long time again. So you can see here, oh no, a very expensive query, hooray, it's cached, and then down here again, oh no, a very expensive query. Okay, so now let's simulate thundering herd, right? So let's wait until this is going to take a long time, and now it's taking a bunch of time, and I'm going to refresh a bunch of times, because I definitely want to buy that PlayStation 5, right? I'm not upset. But you can see here, I just thundering herded all over this server, right? Kind of my point here is like you need to be aware and cautious of how you're doing these kind of caching strategies. This caching strategy is probably fine for something that's going to be hit relatively infrequently, that your chances of thundering herd are very low. It's probably okay. But if you're going to be like implementing like a Black Friday flash sale, not that I'm speaking from experience here, you don't want to do it this way. But again, yeah, this is one way you can definitely do a caching strategy.